So now kind of the question is alt season coming? So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so broadly speaking, first, yeah, it's been a great year, I think, even though some people might disagree because they have short-term memories and they're like, oh my goodness, right? But yeah, just remember what it was just a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, of course, the space is going to continue to grow. One of the trends that we're seeing on institutional adoption is digital asset treasuries. So our view is whether it's digital asset treasury or an ETF or whatever you want to call it, something that goes into public markets, we believe if you want to be a token that can be institutionally adopted, that people can be prepared to invest in from an institutional standpoint, you have to have a public markets play. And it's not because of the fact that people can't buy a token. It's the fact that someone can be held accountable for that is, it got an institutional reputation, right? So it required sort of the likes of a Tom Lee, for instance, to go and say, hey, ETH is great, for ETH to actually be taken seriously as an institutional asset because someone is now accountable for it, even though it's decentralized as an ecosystem, for instance, right? And I think that started with Bitcoin much earlier, right? And then now it's going with Solana and everything. So every token that is worth its salt will ultimately have either that or ETF or some kind of way in which you get vested. So that trend will continue, and whether they're successful or not is a different question, but I think you'll see much more of that. The second thing, and I think Bitcoin is going to love me for this, but I would argue it's good for them, which is that over time, we believe that altcoins as an overall index is going to be significantly larger than Bitcoin. This may sound like heresy to Bitcoiners, right? Because today, of course, Bitcoin is roughly 2 times that of altcoins. And the perspective we take is that Bitcoin is very similar to gold. And gold is the single largest asset, right? And gold for a while has been the one largest asset in the world, right? Especially when the world was on the gold standard. However, when you think about the market caps of all companies combined, for instance, it's 128 trillion compared to 24 trillion for gold, right? And why is that? Well, because of the innovation and growth that's happening in these companies. So Google and Facebook and Apple individually are not bigger than gold. But as a collective, they are bigger than gold because they're the ones driving adoption. They're bringing growth. They're bringing technology. They're creating innovation, right? It's IP, trademarks, all that kind of stuff. And what are the sectors essentially in crypto that represent growth and that kind of opportunity, that kind of development, that user adoption? I'm afraid it's not Bitcoin. And Bitcoin was never meant to be that type of sort of asset. It's a store of value. It's basically, I like to call it your crypto savings account, right? So when you're basically trading meme coins or you're trading digital assets or you make money earning tokens in your on-chain gaming ecosystems or whatever it is, then you have some profit. You might continue to trade some, but guess what? If you want to save some, you buy Bitcoin. And so the reason why Bitcoin is growing is because the ecosystem is growing, right? And I think this is where we have a part of the difference here, which is altcoins from a mental accounting standpoint is something where people are willing to spend because there's an inflation. And that inflation causes people to continue to spend and therefore grow and create investment capital versus Bitcoin, people don't spend it, right? So if Bitcoin was the only asset in the world, then we'd have a really, really terrible economy because nobody would spend their Bitcoin, right? And an economy where you don't have spend isn't an economy to begin with and doesn't have any flow, right? And so that's really the big point here is that the engagement comes from altcoins. We're not there yet, but over the longer term, and certainly that is Animoca's bet and perspective, is that altcoins are going to be much larger as a collective and is going to drive, as it has done, growth and innovation in the space.